Good morning, and welcome to our webinar today on System Integration and Budgeting Challenges, a solutions primer for the behavioral health industry. Look at the agenda for today. We will be starting out and doing just some quick introductions, and then we're going to talk about some of the challenges that we see in the industry, and then we'll discuss how we've helped our clients address those challenges. And as I mentioned before, we will finish up with some Q&A time. Okay, so let's do some quick introductions. I am James Meyer. I'm a principal with Maynard Costerisan. I have been consulting in ERP systems and technology for over 30 years, and I have quite a bit of that time in industry experience in the healthcare, behavioral health area. With me today is Dave Feenstra, who is also a principal with Maynard Costerisan, and he is the director of our business solutions and technology practice. And Dave will be participating a little bit later in this session, showing you some of our integration technologies. And then also Seth Meyer is on this call. He's the manager of our software development team. And just in case anybody's curious, Seth is not related. We just have the same last name. So that is a little introduction into our team here. Let me give you a little, just really quick background into Maynard Costerisan. So we are a 140-person CPA firm based in Lansing, Michigan. And but as part, in addition to our traditional CPA services and outsourced accounting services, we also have a business solutions and technology practice, which I mentioned earlier that Dave heads up. And in our business solutions and technology practice, we really focus on helping our clients select and implement ERP, financial accounting solutions, and also budgeting and reporting solutions. And we have a very large focus on the whole behavioral health industry. I mean, we are members of the Community Mental Health Association of Michigan. And as you can see here with some of here's some of these logos of some of the CMHSPs, some of the PIHPs, and some of the other behavioral health service providers that we work with. Here's some of the logos for that. Okay, so let's now talk about what we see as today's challenges. And I want to clarify that, and we're going to talk about just some of those challenges, because we know that you have a lot of challenges that you're facing, and but we wanted to focus today on three areas where we think we can help. And the first of those areas is the whole issue of funding. Funding is always a challenge, and what the result of that is there's just always continued pressure to automate processes, keep overhead, keep cost as low as possible. So that's the number one challenge we've got here. The second challenge that we're going to address today is COVID-19. You know, I don't know how you can do a webinar today without mentioning the word COVID-19, but basically what we see that, you know, what that means for the behavioral health industry is we see, you know, because of COVID-19, there's going to be, or there is an increase in demand in services because people are stressed, people are alone and isolated, and so that's an issue. But also there's an issue of the workforce, because your workforce, you're trying to keep them safe, and you're trying to figure out, or you have the issue of how do we work remotely and work more efficiently remotely. All right, so we'll talk about that a little bit and how we can address that. And then the final challenge is reporting, because reporting requirements are always extensive in this industry, and they're changing. I mean, you know, there's new FSR requirements. So you need to have a very flexible reporting functionality in your software, and you also need to have better budgeting and forecasting tools, particularly again in today's world where we're trying with COVID-19 and the impact that's having and how that's forcing us to change, and then we need to adjust our budgets accordingly. So we're going to talk about the three of those and how we're going to address them, and I'm going to talk about that in terms of the solutions that we have come up with in working with our clients, or and are doing that. So if you take the first issue I talked about before, which is the funding issue and the fact that we need to be more efficient and have better processes. The first thing that we would encourage everybody to do, if you're not already doing it, is to automate the flow of information between all your systems, because we know that you're all working with multiple systems. You've got an EHR system, you've got payroll service or payroll software, you've got your ERP or accounting software, maybe you've got an expense management solution, maybe you've got some kind of separate database that you've set up in SQL or Access or Excel, and you need to tie that in. And in today's world with technology, there's no reason you can't integrate that. And so we're going to talk and show you some of the tools that we have for doing that. The second thing is that we're talking about COVID-19 and the issue of working remotely and working more efficiently. And one of the things that really can help with that is to have a cloud-based ERP or financial accounting solution for your people, so that they can get information more easily, and so that your people can operate more effectively even when they're remote. So we're going to talk about that. And then the final piece is, we mentioned that you have to, budgeting and reporting is, and being able to adjust budgets, being able to adjust reports is really important. So we'll talk a little bit about some potential solutions for addressing that. So let's address the first one. The first item here is the integration. And relative to that, on the integration, doing automated, and the key here is automated integrations. The idea is you want to get away from doing manual transfer of data, because anytime you got people involved, you got a potential for errors, and you also have time and inefficiencies. And so data is not timely. So the whole key here is to automate that. So to help our clients do that, we've actually developed and we market a tool which we call ManerLink. And we want to talk to you a little bit about ManerLink. I mean, basically what ManerLink does is ManerLink, it comes with pre-built connectors. So we have connectors into most of a lot of major ERP systems like Sage Intacct, Microsoft Dynamics, GP, Microsoft Dynamics Business Central. We've got QuickBooks, we've got Adaptive Insights, but it also works with things like ODBC connections, CSV files, Excel, etc. It has very flexible field mapping, so you can map your source fields to your destination fields. You can set up scheduled integrations, so again, it runs automatically. Those can be as frequent as you want them. We can have, it has audit trails, it's got error handling, and last but not least, it's basically with ManerLink, unlike a lot of other tools that handle integration, you can set up an unlimited number of connections, and it handles unlimited number of transaction volumes. And so that's a real plus as you're looking at that. So today what we're going to do is we're going to show you an example. This is an example. A lot of our clients in the behavioral health industry or CMH industry are using PCE for their EDHR. So we're going to show you how you can take PCE and you can feed that information into Microsoft Dynamics GP, and then we'll show you how you can use PCE and we can feed it into Sage Intacct. One thing I forgot to mention a little bit earlier, I just wanted to give you an example is one of our clients is using this, for example, is Shiawassee Health and Wellness, and Ina Mason, the CFO there, was telling me that once we integrated her PCE to her GP, she was able to save about a day, actually more than a day a month in time. But more importantly, she said the biggest benefit was the fact that it was it eliminated that human factor. So they didn't have the error piece of it, so the system comes through, the data, they can depend on the data is going to be accurate. And so again, big benefits that come from that. Okay, so with that, I am now going to turn this over to Dave Feenstra, and Dave will show you ManerLink and how we can pull data into GP and Intacct to show you the flexibility of ManerLink.
Okay. Thank you, James. So as James mentioned, we just want to do a quick overview of ManerLink and how it can really help you automate some of your day-to-day processes. So what ManerLink is it's an entire integration platform that we've built. It's actually web-based. but it also has a desktop component where you can build your maps, create all of your integrations between your various systems, and then deploy those into ManerLink Online, where they will then run from the cloud. And as James mentioned, everything runs seamless if you need it to be behind the scenes. That way, if you are running multiple cloud-based systems, your data will sync automatically behind the scenes without anything happening on your part. Even if you're running an on-prem system, such as Dynamics GP, or even if you have Dynamics GP hosted by an external provider, that data is going to sync automatically. And as James mentioned with Shiawassee Health and Wellness, that's exactly what happens. Their data just automatically comes over from PCE into GP. They process what they need to do on the GP side, and then the checks that were generated as a result of those payables transactions automatically are synced back to PCE without any interaction from anybody in person. So everything is just seamless. So this is what I'm showing you here is the homepage for the ManerLink site, but we're going to be running this demo through on our desktop client. So with that, here is the desktop client for ManerLink. And again, what ManerLink allows you to do is to connect to a variety of different sources and move that data into any number of destination areas. So in this case, we have two actual mapping files set up, one that's taking PCE to GP and one that's taking PCE to Intact. And again, we are just using PCE as an example on this because the majority of our community mental health clients are using PCE for their claims management. And so we have that set up. So I'm just going to take a look at the map that we have going to GP. And the way PCE does their integration is that they actually do it through file transfers. And so we're automatically picking up that file off of a secure site that PCE has provided. But if we were to edit the mapping here, we can see for this particular map, we are just using a connection to a data file. And in this particular case, it's just a connection to a text file that has come down. But as you can see, we can connect to a variety of sources. We've got Salesforce, we've got Adaptive Insights, we've got the Dynamics 365 Business Central, we've got Dynamics GP, Sage Intacct, a lot of different data sources that we can connect to, in addition to the standard data sources, things like text files, Excel spreadsheets, Microsoft Access databases, SQL Server databases. Any of those data files can be used as data sources or destinations. We also have connections into a lot of the popular web-based applications out there, as far as some of the membership systems, other claims management systems. We have those all pre-built, and we have the ability of generating a lot of those connections, on the fly. So what I want to walk through here is just a connection from a text file into Dynamics GP and into Sage Intacct. Now, the files that come from PCE are not necessarily all that clean. So if you were to take this file and want to manually key that in to whatever your financial accounting system is, that could lead to potential errors. And as James mentioned, a lot of times the human interaction is what can cause data keying errors and cause other issues when you're trying to keep your data in sync. So in this case, we're able to take that file and really clean it up and put it into a nice format like this, so that when we hit run, and again, I'm manually running a map, but in reality, this map would just run behind the scenes seamlessly without any interaction. And so in this case, it looks like I errored out because I already have the transactions in the system. So if I look at the transactions, I already have those PCE transactions in here. And so what it ended up doing was failing because I had duplicates. So if I went ahead and took these transactions out of the system as if they had never been put in and went back into ManerLink and I ran, and that mapping ran again, then you'll see this time I'm going to get a nice green box. Green is always good. So what that is telling me is that I do have good error trapping. We can set the system up to notify via email when an error does occur so that the end user knows that there is something that needs to be addressed. Now, if I go back into Dynamics GP and just check my batches, I can see here's the PCE batch that just came in. And if I go into my transactions, I can see my individual PCE transactions as well as any of the general ledger distribution that goes along with them. I'm also able to track any memo fields that are coming over. In this case, the memo field is telling us what the date range is for the various claims that came across. But the power of ManerLink is that we can tailor these integrations to however the end client wants that data brought into their ERP system or their financial accounting system. So if we needed to change the way the data was brought in, we want maybe some different descriptions brought in, the power of ManerLink allows us to take care of a lot of that right on the fly without having to do a lot of maintenance. So that was an example of bringing it into GP. And if we look at that, I'm going to again edit the map and I'm going to look at the destination. And so in this case, you can see my destination is going to GP, and I'm going into our test database, which happens to be called Fabricam. But then here, I just have a drag and drop ability to do mappings. So it really takes a lot of the customization out of your processes. If you just decided you wanted to change the way a field was mapped, you can just drag and drop it into a new field. And you can see here is a list of all of the destinations. And this isn't even a complete list of all of the destinations that we have available out of the box in ManerLink. So in this case, we are using the Dynamics GP destination, but we do have Sage Intacct, Dynamics 365, and a number of other products that we have already built. So that's just an example of the GP one. But what about if you're using a cloud-based system like Sage Intacct? We have the same basic thing. The mapping is going to be a little bit different. But again, here's my source data. And if I edit that mapping, you'll see, just like I had with GP, here my destination is set to Intacct. And it's the same process. I can go into the mapping and I can just start taking my source data that's over here and I can just do a drag and drop right into the available fields of Sage Intacct. And again, Intacct is a cloud-based system. So we're actually talking to Intacct behind the scenes and writing that data in. So if we just want to run this map, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this map and then I'm going to turn it back over to James just to actually take a look at this as he goes into a demo of Sage Intacct. So you see right now I have this data. I'm going to go ahead and run the map and I am going to get a nice green result down here. And that indicates that I do not have any errors. If I did have any errors, emails or some other notification process would be sent out. So as you can see, even from an end user standpoint, if a map needs to manually be run for any reason, if it's for resolving any errors or doing anything else that requires a manual intervention, it is a very easy process to come into ManerLink and run those mappings. So with that, I see we have a success going into Intacct. So I'm going to turn this back over to James, and he is actually going to show you those transactions in Intacct along with other things related to Intacct. James, it's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Dave. It's Sage. I am now in Intact, and I'm looking at the list of all of the bills that are in the system, all the open bills or vendor invoices that are in the system. And if you look at this, you'll see at the top, it's the most recent bill that came in was 5/15/20. Okay, so I have not. I was on the screen before Dave did ran his integration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh the screen. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to hit refresh, and you'll see that those 3 transactions that Dave just sent over from ManerLink are now in Intact. And that's how easy it is. So those are in there, and if we go into edit and look at those transactions or view, we can see again, just like Dave was showing you in GP, I can see here's my transaction from the vendor. Here's my description that came in. And then down here, here's my GL distribution for the contract services that we offered with the breakdown for the different dimensions, or et cetera. Okay, so let me go back. Again, to summarize then, let me go back, and I'm going to pop over to my back over to the PowerPoint. So what we just showed again was an example. We showed you how information could be pulled from PCE into GP or pulled into Sage Intact, or if you had another ERP system, how we could pull it into that system. If you had a different EHR system, we could do a link to that. So it allows you to automate that functionality and make sure that you got timely information and without errors, and it's accurate. So that was our first solution that we talked about, was the automated integration. Second thing is let's talk about cloud-based ERP solutions. A lot of you have legacy ERP systems, on-premise ERP systems like Dynamics GP or Dynamics SL, or maybe Epicor. And as I think COVID-19 has actually shown, there are some disadvantages to that. I should say the other way around. There's advantages to having cloud applications for sure. So I can operate from anywhere, anytime, any place, any browser, any device very easily. But there are other benefits of cloud-based ERP solutions. And so what we're going to talk about a little bit is Sage Intact, because we believe Sage Intact is a great option for our behavioral health clients. An example of that is Great Lakes Bay Health Centers, which is an FQHC, but they get a lot of their funding from the CMH system. They're using Sage Intact, and they have multiple locations, they have multiple programs, they have multiple specialties, they have multiple grants that they got to track, and Sage Intact is ideal for doing that. So let's talk about some of the other advantages of Sage Intact. I mean, the biggest one of a cloud-based, and this is cloud-based, true cloud-based SaaS solution. SaaS is software as a service solutions, and the benefit is it's always current. There's no more upgrades, no more updates. You're always on the most current version, so you can take advantage of the new features as they come out and the new technologies. And the reason for that is it's what they call a multi-tenant application written for the cloud. Multi-tenant means everybody's running on the same software. So big benefit to the users. Intact itself, and one of the reasons we recommend it, is it has the highest customer satisfaction ratings of any ERP system per G2, which is kind of the known source for rating. Those are customer ratings, so software. It's also the only ERP system that's exclusively endorsed by the AICPA, the American Institute of CPAs, which I think says a lot for that software in itself. It's designed for organizations that have a lot of different financial dimensions they want to track, whether it's entities, multiple locations, multiple specialties. Anything that you want to track, it's designed for that. It makes it very, very efficient, as you'll see when we get in look at the software. And then finally, it has very strong built-in financial reporting and dashboards, which ties back to that whole issue of having, you have extensive reporting requirements. We know that, and Intact really addresses that really well. So, whoops, sorry. Let's go ahead and let's go back over to Intact. Oops, I keep going to the wrong screen there. Let's go. There we go. Sorry about that. So I'm going to go and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just focus on actually just some dashboards because it allows me to show you some of the reporting flexibility of the system, which is really what we want to focus on is their reporting flexibility. So let's start out with and look at a dashboard on budget position that we've got set up here. And all of these dashboards, by the way, in Intact are totally user-defined. You can put whatever you want on your dashboard. You can take any report in the system. It has an extremely powerful report writer, as you'll see. But any of those reports I can put on a dashboard in addition to graphs and charts. So, and the ability to have those reports is so nice because I can access these dashboards, again, through any device. So from my phone, I can access dashboards and I can do full drill down. It's everything that we do here on this browser that I'm running right now on a Chrome browser on my desktop, but anything we're doing here I can do on my phone just as easily. So you're looking here, here's an example of this is an example of a report where I'm showing all my departments. So I've got my medical, I got my behavioral health, it's an integrated system here. And I've got dental, etc. And for each of those, I can see budget versus actual. How do I stand? And I've got some highlights in there to point out where I have some discrepancies that are out there. And I can scroll through and see my full statement of activities or P&L, depending on how you'd like to call it. Down here, I've got a little more detailed focus on my expenditures where I'm also showing my committed costs. So if you're doing any kind of like PO commitments or encumbrances, we can track those commitments to see not only what we've actually spent, but what we've actually spent plus what's committed already to see if we're over budget or not. And the neat thing about this, you see again, we've got conditional highlighting, so I can show if there's an issue where I'm really over budget. And just as I scroll down, you can see some other ways of looking at this thing. I can see trends. I can see a graph here of budget versus actual, etc. But the real power of Intact is the dimensional accounting. It doesn't use a segmented chart like a lot of older systems do. What it has is you have an account number and then you have separate dimensions. And the nice thing with those dimensions is I can filter on my reports on those dimensions, but I can also filter an entire dashboard. So for example, if I just wanted to look at my behavioral health department, I could go ahead and click on behavioral health. And instead of seeing all of these departments, when I hit apply here, it's going to redraw my entire dashboard for just that behavioral health department. So you can see here now, I'm just looking at behavioral health, but I'm also looking at behavioral health on my actual versus budget versus commitment. So you can see how that works. Okay, let me go back and I'll go back to here. And again, I can drill down on any of these. So if I want to drill into this and try to see what this discrepancy is here, if I look at this, I can see, well, my actual versus budget actually is pretty close in terms of what I've actually spent. The problem is I've got a committed cost out here that's causing me to go over budget. I wonder what that commitment is. Well, what I could do, I can click on the magnifying glass to expand that report out and see the entire report. Now I could go in and let's look at those program expenses. Let's drill down and it's in the program supplies area. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that committed cost. And I can see all the transactions that make up those commitments. And I got one big one here. So maybe I click on that big one and drill down into that if I want to. And if I want, I can go all the way back down into the original transaction here, which I could view, which is essentially a purchase commitment or purchase requisition for some, looks like it's for our consortium conference, okay? And maybe I say, okay, that makes sense. I remember now we agreed to pay some extra money for that and we're good. If I'm not happy with that and I have a question about it, one of the other nice features of this is I have the ability right in here to basically collaborate with my finance team and ask them what's going on. So maybe I'm a program manager looking at this and I'm going to go ahead and I got a question, I can send a note right off to my controller and say, hey, this doesn't look right. Did it get coded properly? And I don't even have to go out of the system to my email or phone. Very, very convenient, very functionally, very powerful. Okay. Just to show you a few other reports that are out there, I'll just show you some of the other dashboards that we've got. So compliance. If I'm producing my statement, my financial position, my statement of activities, here you've got a breakdown of all of those that's out there. So you've got that. Maybe I am I want to look at my clinics out there. If I have clinics and I want to see some statistics related to those. So I've got some KPIs out there in addition to some reports. Maybe I'm the CFO and I want to look at it from a little bit higher level. So I've got a CFO dashboard. And the CFO is interested in cash trends and my net assets and where do we stand. Maybe I am also, I've got, you notice over here to the right, I got some requests out here to approve some payments and some purchases because you've got workflow built into this. And then last but not least, I could actually, I'll show you, not last because I'll show you a couple more. Maybe I'm a grant manager. I want to see the status of my grants. So here's a grant that's got, here's my award, here's how much we've drawn, here's what we have left, etc. And then finally, I'm a board member. I could give access to my board members to a dashboard and maybe certain things I want to show the board. So you can, very powerful report writing, a lot of flexibility, but also the ability to put this information in the hands of people that need it when they need it, real time, that they can drill down to. Very, very, very powerful. Okay, so let's go back over to our presentation, and that's the beauty of a cloud-based financial reporting system. So now let's talk about a cloud-based budgeting solution. And the solution that we're recommending is called Solver. There's others out there. Adaptive Insights, actually it's now called Workday Adaptive Planning, is a great solution. There's Vena, there's Budget Maestro, there's other solutions out there, but we find Solver to be the best combination from a ROI standpoint in terms of capabilities versus price versus ease of use. And it's really nice for people that are comfortable with Excel. So if you look at this here, you'll see you got budgeting challenges. Most of our clients, if they're not using a product like Solver, they're trying to do things in Excel. But Excel has a lot of limitations. It has limitations in terms of bringing data into it, of managing the spreadsheets and making sure that links don't get broken, in managing workflow, in setting up or putting in comments that flow through, in doing on-the-fly scenario planning or forecasting or what if. A lot of challenges trying to do that with Excel. All of those get resolved when you move to a solution like Solver, a cloud-based budgeting solution, because it's all controlled, it's all automated. And so now I can set up my parameter-driven modules that are web-based. I can have workflow. I can do dynamic what-if stuff. I can have multiple versions out there that manages all the version control. Very, very powerful, very, very useful. And the way this works is you have a data warehouse. And essentially you set it up to pull data from all your different sources using a tool like ManerLink or using the native connectors that are built into Solver. So I can pull the data in from my ERP system, from my payroll, etc. And then you get all that data in one place. So you got one source of truth. And then I can run reports, I can do budgets, and I can build dashboards off of that for financial reporting. So this could be, if you don't want to move to a cloud-based solution like Intact with its strong accounting, and maybe you're using a product like Dynamics GP, you could still use Solver to do your budgeting and then use it for reporting and dashboarding and have the same kind of functionality you've got over there in Intact from a reporting standpoint in making information available to people, if that makes sense. So let me show you a little demo of Solver, and then we'll wrap up here for the day. So I'm going to go over, and I've got Solver open in another tab out here. Again, this is cloud-based, all right? But one of the beauties of Solver, it's a little bit like Dave was talking about in ManerLink. What Solver does is you can build all your reports and your budgeting worksheets in Excel like you're used to doing. So you can do it on your desktop in Excel, and then what you do is you publish them up to the Solver service, and then that's where all your workflow, all your controls are. So people can't go in, they can't break links, they can't mess up your spreadsheets, they can't do any of that. They just have access to what you want to have them access to. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, because you can take advantage of all that Excel functionality that you're already familiar with and comfortable with to create your stuff, but then you publish it up and you use this as your management tool. So let's look a little bit at the budgeting. If I click on budgeting here, because that's really where we want to focus, is you can see I can have different budgeting worksheets out there. So I've got a budgeting worksheet for personnel. I got one for travel. I got one for capital improvements. I got one for all my other expenses. I've got some underlying assumptions that I can set that are related to that. I'm not going to go into all of these, but I just want to go into the personnel one just as an example. So I'm going to click on that one and show you here. This is where I could build my personnel budget. So I can come in here and you see the yellow. Yellow is what I can update. Anything that's not yellow, I can't update. That's set in the system. So you could provide this budgeting worksheet to a manager, to a department manager. And you see up here, just like in Intake, you have filters on your different dimensions. So you can have all your dimensions out here as different filters. So if I want to do this budget for Department 100, I can do 100, but I could change that. And I could go in and I could run it for other departments if I want to do that. So I could run it for any of my other departments if I want to do that. So, but then you just provide these worksheets to your department heads or your program managers or your grant managers or whomever it is, and they can go ahead and update it. You can, and in this case, it's a personnel sheet. You could budget by role. I could budget by FTE. I could budget by individual person. In this case, we're doing it by actual individual person. And you could pull their actuals in if you wanted to, right from your payroll system, if you want to do that. But in this case, I've got the people in here. Let's say, for example, on the CEO, I'm going to give the CEO a raise in 6 months or whatever. It's really easy. I just come into here. I tell it what month I want to do the raise. Let's say we want to do it in June. I come over here, and I'm going to say, let's do a 10% increase, or it could be a dollar amount increase. And it automatically already updated and says, okay, that new salary that they're going to have is $220. And if I scroll over here to the right, you'll see, here's my budget for those first few months. In June, it jumped up to $18,000 because of the increase. And we've got that out there. So you can see how easy it is. You set these worksheets up, you provide these budgets to your people that need to update them. They go in, they update the budget, they then go ahead and they would submit it. And once they submit it, it would go through workflow to an approval process and get approved and then roll up into your master budget that you've got. And you can have different budgets if you want, so you can have different versions of your budget very easily out there. So very simple, very clear. The other thing that's really nice about this is you can have all kinds of reporting that you set up and Solver. So again, if you don't have a tool like Sage Intacct with strong reporting, you can use Solver for those reports, and you can have just tons of reports up there. You can see here I've got my monthly reports, my consolidation, I've got analysis reports, I've got, in this case, I have budget reports clicked, but if I turn that off now, I can see, I'll be able to see all my reports out here that I've got, and I've got a lot of them that are out there that I can work with. But you can take these reports, again, if you want to provide information to people and make it easy for them to access it. What Solver has, which is really great, is they have this archive functionality. So you give people access to the archive for certain reports, and it's just like Outlook. And you see here, I've got these reports that have been published out to my archive. So these are reports that have already been approved, finalized, and published. But the neat thing is the ones that are in bold are ones I haven't looked at yet. So when I come in here, I can see the reports I haven't looked at yet. So if you envision, I've got a department manager who's looking at his month, comes in to look at his monthly reports or whatever, I can see, oh, I haven't looked at this one, let's look at it. Maybe some of these I have. You can also set up different playlists. So I can have a playlist for a board presentation. I can have a playlist for a budget presentation. If I click on that budget presentation, it shows me all the reports that are related to my budget. So I can, so if I'm the CFO presenting the budget to the board, I can have all these reports ready to show the board of what I want to see. And then if I want to look at any of these, I can just click on it and say open, or I can actually play the whole playlist and run through them. In this case, I'm going to go ahead, pull up that report, my budget analysis, and you can see you can make these reports just phenomenal looking. They're pure board presentation quality. So you can see here I've got graphs showing what's going on. As I scroll down, I can see my individual items. Here's the different revenue coming in and expenses. But you can see, here's my budget. Here's my actual to date. Here's my forecast for the remaining months. Here's what we forecast the end of the year is going to look like, or the end of the fiscal year. Here's last year. Here's my variances, etc. It's very powerful, very beautiful. I can have my KPIs down here at the bottom. You've got all kinds of flexibility. So I think it gives you an idea. So what we talked about today is we talked about the integrations and the advantages of automating that. We talked about the advantage of having cloud-based financial reporting solutions and cloud-based ERP solutions. So summarizing, we hope this was helpful for you. Again, we've seen how this can help our behavioral health clients, and we wanted to share it with you. And if you're interested in learning more about this, here's my contact info. And if anybody's interested in pricing, again, just reach out and we'd be happy to get you a quick quote for any of these solutions. Thank you for attending, and have a nice day.